Do Agile or be Agile? It's a tricky one, because if you just do Agile, you don't necessarily understand the fundamentals of why these methods and mechanisms you're using actually help your business, so you don't know how to apply them more effectively. On the other hand, being Agile, while the sentiment is there, doesn't really mean anything in itself and isn't useful at all. So we'll look at that today. Alright, so starting with doing Agile. The problem if we just focus on a mechanism is that all of our businesses aren't actually the same. Neither are necessarily our software teams. So in our business we might have a totally different way that we sell, that we market, that we deliver our software, that we make software products, or we make software as a service, or we deliver software as part of other people's services, or we're a branch of a different business, or we have a separate branch of our business that isn't software. All of these things come together so that generic applications of techniques and methods aren't necessarily going to go in and give us good value for our business. In some cases they'll go in and they'll work fairly well but not great. In other cases they'll go in and get taken out because they don't apply to that. So what we need to understand is, underlying each of the methods and approaches we're trying to implement, why does that method actually work? What are the effects that it's giving us? If we do that, we can then start to be agile by backtracking to the effect, removing ourselves from the action of the mechanism or the detail of it, backtracking to the effect, and then figuring out a different similar approach to deliver it in our business. So let's have a look at this for some agile methods. We've got, let's say, sprints. We've got sprints. Why are sprints effective? There's obviously a number of reasons. No, perhaps not obviously, that's the whole point of this. There's a number of reasons why they're effective. One is that they lower work in progress. By lowering work in progress, you get less multitasking in the team, less picking up and putting down of tasks. You also get shorter handovers between resources. I'll explain that. If I'm working on a task and I've got to give it to you, and then you have to give it to another person after that, if I hand it over to you, I'm ready to hand it over, but you've just started on something else, and that's going to take you all afternoon. So instead I hand it over tomorrow morning, and then you start on it, away you go, you work on it for the morning or the day, whatever it is, and then you come to hand it over to the last person. Let's say it's our team leader, and they just need to do a review, but they're pretty busy. So they've got a lot of other things on. There's a lot of other people in the team with a lot of things on. So eventually they get to it after a few days, and it's not as fresh in their heads, and it didn't get done as quickly. So the work in progress means that we've got all these other things to do in the meantime, rather than having one task smoothly flow through the team. So that means that things have increased touch time, they have massively increased elapsed time, and we can have more and more variation impact us throughout that time. So that's a good lead into the second one. Another major reason for time boxing sprints shorter and shorter and shorter, of course starting with our traditional waterfall, or whatever you want to call it, style techniques, is that the availability of tasks which are committed to and started to be impacted by variation is smaller. So if there are changes that happen out there in the environment, and you've got some work that's going to be worked on next sprint, those changes come in, you understand them, you make some tweaks to the design, whatever you do, and then you get onto it in the sprint. Doesn't matter, right? It's protected. It's great. If you're committed to, let's say you were doing a 4-week sprint, that would have already been in your sprint, and now you're making adjustments to something that somebody might have started. So the smaller and smaller time boxing means that there is less availability for work that's been committed to be impacted by external changes and variation. So just looking at those couple of elements, you can then start to look for what are other ways we can implement this in our team and in our business, or protect those things to get more and more from our agile approach. So this is how you start to be agile, or think agile is the other way of saying it. To think agile, you need to step back from any mechanism that you have and consider what is the actual benefit and why does it get that benefit. It's very important that somebody in your business has this fundamental understanding. Not everybody has to have it, because they don't all need to be involved in these decisions. Many people working to it might say, well, it works better than the old thing, so let's keep doing it. but you want to have at least somebody whose job it is really to fundamentally understand why certain productivity techniques, why certain quality improvement techniques, everything work, so that they know how to correctly apply them to your business to maximize the benefit from them. Another one could be daily Scrum stand-ups. I know plenty of businesses where these have gone off the rails and people are like, why do we even do these things anymore? We just show up and all talk about the tasks we're working on. All right, well, if you use those for something more useful, like showing up and, for example, clarifying handovers. So now we're doing that reduction in work in progress step from sprints, but we can apply it here as well. I mean, this is an advised thing to do anyway, but it's a example of an application where you're changing the mechanism you're doing, as you are now, so that you get the benefit from it. So instead, at your daily update, stand-up, Scrum, whatever you want to call it, you update everybody, you update the next person in line on when that's going to be ready. Now, if I know I've got something coming just after lunch, I'm not going to start a huge thing that's going to take me all afternoon. I might just clear through a few smaller things I've got to do, ready for that handover. Now the work moves faster through the system. So this thinking actually underpins a lot of the other flaws we've looked at throughout the series in why these transformations don't get the effect you wanted to get, or don't get you the benefit that you wanted. It's because in most cases, what's not being considered is the underlying effect of all these mechanisms. You're wanting to jam something in regardless of the structure of your business. That might mean that it conflicts with beliefs that management have about the direction of the company. There you go. That's the one where you fail to get management buy-in. It might conflict with sales about the approach they're taking. Again, now you've got issues where you haven't managed to roll out Agile throughout the whole company. There's another video. So in all of these cases, what you can do is you can figure out the benefit of that mechanism and figure out how to change it and apply it to your situation so that you can actually think Agile, be Agile, and implement these methods. Final takeaway from this is, final thing you can do here is reconsider even the time boxing of sprints. The idea that an iteration of software is magically, a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or at all based on quartering a lunar cycle, is a bit ridiculous. So instead, you might do something like say, well, we don't have time box anymore. We've got time box based on every individual iteration. Now, we want to do this iteration or this chunk of iterations, and we're going to do a couple of bug fixes in amongst this. And this is going to take us 6 days. There you go. You got a 6-day sprint. Next one comes up, it's 9 days. That's fine. You're not breaking any laws. You could do that. You might say, oh, in our business, actually, every fortnight we have a deployment into the code base. There you go. Now you've got a legitimate reason as to why those 14 days make sense. If you don't have that, you might be more flexible on those sprint lengths. You might get rid of sprint lengths entirely and just look at the risk of completing any individual iteration. And rather than having a due date for it, you just go, well, we've got this much time to do it. How on track are we for completing it within our estimates? Again, that's another way to get more from the approaches while challenging the actual underlying mechanisms. A lot of those mechanisms have not changed in 20 years or so. And so for a methodology for an approach called Agile, in a lot of cases businesses are implementing it in a very structured way that is in no way Agile. So don't be one of those businesses. Figure out why these techniques are effective and change them so you can apply them to your business. If you like today's video, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more of these. Don't forget to share it around so that other people can get some of this value out of it too. And of course, say hi in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Cheers.